So now we're going to work through a few practice problems where we are applying the quadratic formula. And what I would like you to do in between each step is pause the video, try to do the next step yourself, and then use the video to check yourself to see whether or not you're right. Please just don't copy down everything I'm doing. Even if it's wrong, who cares? That's why God gave you an eraser. You can fix it. And we know your brain just grew because you learned from your mistake. So the first thing I want you to do is write down the formula or the quadratic formula. Try to come up with it on your own. Pause the video, take a minute to write it down, then restart the video to check and see whether or not you did it correctly. I'm going to assume you paused the video and that now you're ready to check. So it's x equals negative or opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2 times a. Now that we have checked to make sure we have the correct formula written down, I want you to now pause the video and label A, B, and C in the original problem. Again, I'm going to assume that you've paused the video and that you've tried that out yourself. So in this case, A is going to be that 1 that is in front of the m squared. B is going to be a negative 5. And C is that negative 14 for a constant. Next up, we need to take that A, B, and C and sub it into the formula. Please take a moment and try that yourself and restart the video in just a second. So I notice here, as I'm starting to substitute, that the formula is the opposite of B, and that B is a negative 5. So if I substitute the negative 5 into the formula, it's really going to be a negative 5, which is a positive 5. So just for my own ease and to make it less messy, I'm going to go ahead and just substitute a positive 5 in for B, because the opposite of a negative 5 would be a positive 5. I'm going to write the plus or minus because that's part of the formula. My square root, again, because that's part of the formula. B squared is going to become negative 5 to the second minus 4. A is that 1. C is that negative 14. And all of this is on top of 2 times A, which is 1. Now that we have the numbers substituted into the formula, I'd like you to now pause and try to do the first part of kind of cleaning this up a little bit. And you're going to want to look at everything underneath the square root symbol first. So take a moment, pause the video, try to use some order of operations to simplify it, clean it up a little bit, and then restart the video when you're ready. So the first thing I am going to deal with is that exponent, because we know that we need to do exponents first. So negative 5 times negative 5 is going to give us a positive 25. I'm going to put that minus because that's part of the formula. And then turn my attention to 4 times 1 times negative 14. So 4 times 1 would be 4. 4 times negative 14 would give me a negative 56. And I notice that, again, I've got a minus right here. And we know that minus a negative is going to turn that into a plus. So underneath the square root now, we're really adding 25 plus 56, which is 81. Then you're going to notice that that 81 has is a perfect square, because the square root of 81 is 9. And I got that because 9 times 9 is 81. So I'm going to take that square root to get rid of that square root symbol now. So I finally just have a plain number 9. So once you get finished with simplifying all the little pieces underneath the square root, that square root should now be gone, and you should only have the number 9 to bring down the rest of the formula. So the 5 will come down, so it'll be 5 plus or minus 9. And then 2 times 1, I'm going to go ahead and simplify that because I know that 2 times 1 is going to be 2. So now that we're here, I'd like you to pause the video, take a second to try to figure out what you should do next, and then restart the video when you're ready. Again, I'm going to assume that you've done that. So remember, this plus minus here means that you've got to actually solve this for 2 different expressions. You got to do 5 plus 9 divided by 2, and then you also have to do 5 minus 9 divided by 2. So 5 plus 9 is 14. 14 divided by 2 is 7. 5 minus 9 is negative 4. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. So my 2 solutions for this quadratic equation, braces I can't draw, are negative 2 and 7. Those are my 2 solutions for that equation. This example is extremely similar to the last one we just did, so I would like you to pause, try to work the whole thing out this time using the first one as an example, then restart the video whenever you are ready. So the first thing I notice is that A is going to be that 1 in front of the B squared, B is that negative 4, and C is that positive 4. And I need to memorize the quadratic formula. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. So then I am going to substitute those values into the equation. Because that's a negative 4 for b, I know a negative 4 is going to end up being a positive 4. So I'm just going to write it that way right from the get-go. B to the second power is going to be negative 4 squared minus 4. A is 1. C is 4. And it's all going to be over 2 times A, which is 2 times 1. Now I'm going to clean up all the stuff that's underneath the square root symbol. So I've got so now I'm going to rewrite negative 4 times negative 4 is going to be a positive 16. 4 times 1 times 4 is going to be minus 16. And you notice something kind of funny happens here, right? You've got 16 minus 16, which is going to be 0, of course. And 0 times 0 is 0, which means the square root of 0 is going to be 0. So when you bring down the rest of the equation, some of you guys might have gotten a little stuck. Not 100% sure what to do for this one. So I brought down the 4. 2 times 1 is 2, so I'm just going to bring it down like this. So it doesn't matter whether you add or subtract 0, you're going to have the same number. So if you do 4 plus 0 divided by 2, or if you do 4 minus 0 divided by 2, it doesn't matter. You're still going to get 4 divided by 2, which is 2. So whenever you end up with a 0 underneath the square root symbol, underneath the radical, that just means that you only have one solution. So in real life, what that would mean is that if you had a parabola, it would be hitting the x-axis right at the vertex so that it would only hit it in one place, so it only has 1 0. So you didn't do anything wrong. If you got a little confused by that one, it's very reasonable because that one threw a little bit of a curveball at you, but it just happens to only have one solution. Now for example number 3, and I'm hoping that when you look at it, you're going to notice something's a little bit off and that we've got to make a little adjustment before we can get started solving this one. You'll notice that it is not solved for 0, and these all need to be solved for 0 in order for the quadratic formula to work, the same way that it has to be solved for 0 to get factoring to work. So we're going to need to move that 4 over to the other side. I'll do that by subtracting 4 so that I'll have a 0 on the right hand side, and you know that you'll keep the 4b to the second plus 8b plus 3, because we would do 7 minus 4, and that's where we'll get the 3. So now we're going to do the quadratic formula and substitute those values in. I'm going to give you just a minute to do that yourself, and then restart the video just to check and make sure that you got it all subbed in. There's a tiny bit of a trick towards the end for this one too, nothing crazy, but don't get flustered if you feel like you might have done something wrong towards the end. Go ahead and try it yourself first and then restart the video when you're ready. So I'm going to do x equals opposite b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Then I'm going to substitute all of my values in there. So negative b is a positive 8. So that will be a negative 8 that I need to sub in there. Plus or minus square root. Again, b is 8, so that's going to be 8 to the second power. Minus 4 times a is 4. And c is 3. And that's all going to be over 2 times a, which is 2 times 4. Next step, we are going to clean up all that stuff that's underneath the square root symbol. So I'm going to start there with 8 to the second power, which is 64. I'm just going to write down my minus. 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 3 is 48. And then 64 minus 48. Oh, I think I just said that wrong. Maybe I did. Sorry if I said it wrong, but I'm not sure if I did. I can't rewind this. So 64 minus 48 gives you 16. And then the square root of 16 is 4, because 4 times 4 gives you 16. So now I'm going to bring the rest of the formula down. So negative 8 plus or minus 2 times 4 is 8. So I'm just going to bring an 8 down there. Now pause the video, think to yourself, now that you know you've got it all subbed in there correctly, what are you going to do next? Again, I'm going to assume that you have already checked, that you've already tried it yourself. So we need to split this up into two problems. We got negative 8 plus 4 divided by 8, and we've got negative 8 minus 4 divided by 8. So negative 8 plus 4 is negative 4. Negative 4 over 8. Don't freak out that it didn't turn out to be a whole number. That's okay. Remember, in algebra, we like to keep things as fractions. So negative 4 over 8 is the same thing simplified as negative 1/2. And then negative 8 minus 4 is negative 12 over 8, which, if we simplify that, gets us negative 3 over 2. So our two solutions to this quadratic equation are negative 3 over 2 and negative 1/2.